as everybody's slowly coming in, just a heads up, we are recording this session. So if at any point you have to leave, you've got class, feel free to excuse yourself, and we will be loading this recording up onto our YouTube channel probably by the end of this week. So don't panic if you can't stay the whole time. We totally understand, but we're looking forward to having everybody here. So I'm just gonna finish admitting more people in, and then we will get started here in a second. All right. Well, welcome everybody. We're so excited to have you joining us today. We're excited to talk about this topic. We're hoping to share some tips and some tricks and some resources that we've uncovered as we've gone through this dual credit journey. And but before we get started, I wanted to just give a quick intro to everybody who is presenting with me today. So we have my colleague Mike Spalchero is joining us today. He is the one who actually coordinated the whole workshop, so we really appreciate him today. He is our academic engagement specialist here at the Center for Cybersecurity at Purdue University Northwest. He is a former middle school teacher, a veteran, and he is helping to lead the credit transfer agreement project. So we have Mike joining us. We also have two of our professionals from Purdue Northwest Concurrent Enrollment Office. We have Katie Bowers here today. Katie is the coordinator of academics and accreditation in our Concurrent Enrollment Office, and her colleague is Rachel Myers, who is also joining us. Rachel is the coordinator of students and school partnerships. Both Katie and Rachel have an extensive background in concurrent enrollment. They have worked with teachers and administrators in our local and area high schools, and they have helped to develop many enrollment agreements. I don't know how many you guys, if you've ever kept track, but they have done a lot. So they are just experts with these courses with the K12 schools, generating MOUs, initiating teacher credentialing. I know I'm missing things. There's a ton of stuff, but we are excited to have both Katie and Rachel joining us today to share their knowledge with us. And I am Amber Schuler. I am the outreach specialist for the Center for Cybersecurity at Purdue Northwest. I work on a lot of different grants as well. So does Mike. So you might see us at a variety of meetings. I am also a former teacher and have been in higher ed for well over a decade now. I am the point of contact for these credit transfer agreement tasks that we're going to be talking about today. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I went ahead and updated my username in Zoom, and I added my email address on it. If you would like to add your email address as well, that way I can follow up with anybody if there's any questions that happen to pop up in chat and we don't have an answer right now. So just a little housekeeping there. And then I would be remiss not to introduce Dr. Michael Tu, who unfortunately is in a meeting in DC, so I don't think he's able to join us today, but he is our project PI. He is overseeing the credit transfer agreement project funded by this grant, which is through the Careers Preparation National Center, CPNC, for the rest of us who like acronyms. He has been the lead on multiple projects to develop curriculum. He's developed educational games, resources, lots of stuff for our K12 teachers of cybersecurity. So that is us in a nutshell. So why are you here? Why have we been tasked with this credit transfer agreement? Why is this so important? And the reason being is that we've been getting a lot of inquiries, maybe from our deans, our department chairs. We've been hearing it from state and local governments. Federal government as well is really pushing everybody to kind of build these credit transfer agreements in a hope to be recruiting students and to help fill these jobs that we currently have, that we have the abundance of cybersecurity jobs, but not enough trained, skilled employees to fill those roles. So they're thinking we need to reach back further into the K-12 pipeline and start developing these cyber skills in students in high school. And we've even been talking about even going back into the middle school as well. So really important. We're getting a lot of demand or a lot of requests to develop these credit transfer agreements. And if you guys want to throw in chat, if you're hearing this as well from your departments, from your leadership at your universities, just kind of curious how much you guys are being tapped for this. But obviously, as this grant task, this is something that we've taken on, and we're really championing this this task to really begin developing these credit transfer agreements specifically for cybersecurity. And some of the things that we can offer because of the grant is that we can offer a lot of support, which you typically may not have at your university. And as we talk through the credit transfer agreement process with Katie and Rachel, they're really going to break everything down for us. But not everybody has a dual credit or a dual enrollment office on their campus that can help guide you through all of these different steps to finally having a formal contract at the end with your high school. So with this grant, we are kind of your support team, so to speak. So if you're doing this all on your own, know that you've got a group of colleagues here who can at least try and troubleshoot as much as possible and tap into our expertise, Katie and Rachel specifically, with this dual credit development. And the nice thing for the people who are participating today, by participating in this workshop, or if you joined us in our October workshop, you have the opportunity to utilize these resources through us. We have some different resources that Mike will be talking about next. But another nice perk is by developing a new cybersecurity credit transfer agreement, you could qualify for a nice $1,000 stipend through our grant program. And some of the schools that have already jumped on board with developing their new credit transfer agreement transfer agreement have said that they're planning to use that to maybe send their teacher to a workshop this summer so that they can be credentialed to teach their cybersecurity course in the fall. So just some ideas about ways that people are going to be using those funds. And then this is when I'm going to turn it over to Mike and let him talk about what we can offer.
Hi, so my name is Mike, and I have been working on this project for a little bit now. Some of you probably received some emails from me at least once a semester, maybe twice a semester. So some of the things that we have to offer are mentoring, we have curriculum development, and we have lab development, as well as NDG lab hosting. So for those of you who are familiar with these terms, you know that it could be difficult to set up some of these things on your own, especially if you don't have the budget. We are able to do some limited NDG lab hosting and help you set up a lab of your own, as well as provide you with some curriculum and, of course, mentoring either with our faculty members here or through people who can help you with developing your CTA. So that remember that creating a credit transfer agreement takes time and requires an ongoing commitment. So if it's taking you longer than you would normally expect, don't worry about it. These things do take time. It has to reach a lot of people's desks, and because of that, we can get kind of it seems like we're getting bogged down. So it's nothing to really get too concerned about. Reach out to us, and we will be able to provide you with some kind of help. All right. Next slide.
All right, this is me. Sorry, I'm trying to click mute. I'm really stinking at it today. Okay. So for those of you who are interested in developing a cybersecurity credit transfer agreement, you already know that it's something on your radar. Maybe your dean or your department chair has already told you that this is something that needs to be done. And that's why you're coming to our workshop today, to find out the nitty-gritty about getting started with that. So if you're already committed and ready to deep dive in, and you want to have access to the resources, and maybe you're even and want to try and claim one of those $1,000 stipends, first step that you need to do is send me an email and let me know that you're interested in developing your cybersecurity credit transfer agreement. In your email, please include who your point of contact is going to be. If you've got a whole team of faculty and staff helping you, please include them as well. I will use that information to load into our database, and then that way I can outreach to the entire team for any updates about your credit transfer agreement. Once you send me that email, I will send a confirmation email back, and I will send you a copy of our credit transfer agreement development worksheet, which is a really nice fillable PDF, and it will walk you through step by step how to develop your credit transfer agreement. This is great if you don't have a concurrent enrollment office on campus who already has this process in place. So for those schools that are kind of doing this all on their own, this worksheet will be super helpful for you. And it also helps to make certain that you're ticking all those boxes, that you're meeting with all the people that you need to be meeting with. And there's a little bit of flexibility with it as well. So as you'll learn through with Katie and Rachel today, there's a lot of different tasks that can kind of be changed out, like they don't have to be in a set order. So maybe you want to develop your curriculum a bit before you contact your high school teacher, or maybe you wanted to contact the high school teacher first and develop the curriculum together. So there's a little bit of flexibility with some of those tasks. Once you have your completed official dual credit concurrent enrollment agreement, I will need you to send me a copy of that MOU or official contract. If you're shooting for this stipend, you need to get it to me by August 1st. And also sending in with that MOU or that official contract, please send the completed the CTA development worksheet. That's more helpful for us to figure out, to see like where were some of the stumbling blocks along the way, or what tasks took a lot longer than maybe you had anticipated. And that's good feedback for us to kind of see how your process went. So those two items, send those to me then at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and let Mike go ahead and get started, kind of talking about what credit transfer agreements are, and Katie and Rachel will take it from there.
I'm having problems with the mute as well. So as I was saying, a credit transfer agreement is also known as credit transfer policy, or you might know this as an articulation agreement. So this is an agreement between two schools that helps to facilitate the transfer of credits earned by a student from one school to another. And these are designed to create more of a smooth transition for students who want to transfer from one school or one college or university or other educational program to another without losing any credits they already have.
Right. And I was ready with my mute button. So as Amber mentioned, I'm Katie Bowers. I'm the coordinator of academics and accreditation, and with me is Rachel Myers, our coordinator of students and school partnerships. We were just chatting. If you saw us talking, we loved seeing people say hi in the comments and say where they were from. So feel free to continue to do that. Not working with you all regularly, it's great to see kind of where you're coming from and what you are, what your role is. So feel free to continue to do that. We enjoy that very much. So this is a little bit of all the different pieces that we're going to talk about. And as Amber and Michael have both mentioned, these things are not linear. These could be different pieces you're working on simultaneously. It could be pieces that are already done. So one of the pieces in developing that transfer agreement is making sure you have a course that you are offering that aligns with a course that you're offering at the university and in the high school. This could be a course that already exists, so that you can check that box off right away. It could be a course that doesn't exist, but you need to create that curriculum. If it doesn't already exist, as Amber mentioned, you might want to identify what schools you're working with and then identify those teachers who can teach it and then create the curriculum together. It could be that they're already offering a comparable course and they have a base curriculum and you can work off of that. So one of those things we'll talk about is just that course development, determining what schools you're working with and why, making sure that there's a good fit and making sure that you have, again, the teachers who can teach it. That's a big piece of that research of the schools you're going to be working with. Contacting your school administration, as Amber mentioned, we'll talk about this a little bit more in depth, but there may already be existing relationships. So make sure that you are looking at your institution and figuring out who might already be doing some of this work. Meeting with the school, both the administration and the teachers there, to really negotiate, what the course is going to look like, what that agreement looks like, what the expectations are, and then finally implementing that program. So a lot of these things though can be happening simultaneously. Some of the things may be done already, but this is kind of the broad scope of what this is going to look like for you, all those different pieces. So as I mentioned already, creating the curriculum, this one is a little bit more, I guess I would say, ambiguous perhaps, because again, it could be that you already have a curriculum created. It could be that you know that you need to create a curriculum, in which case there might be resources out there for you that there will be some discussion about, I believe. So really, you need to make sure that you just know what the course is you want to offer. If it's already an existing course, I will tell you from my experience working with high school instructors, they sometimes do really appreciate you coming and saying, this is what the course looks like, because it makes their job that much easier. So making sure you know, though, exactly what those course expectations are going to be. I think Amber had sort of alluded to this earlier, but you may already be a NACEP accredited institution, in which case there are specific things that come along with offering these courses as credit in the high school. So as you're developing that course, thinking about things like learning objectives, making sure those are well defined and something that can be replicated in a high school setting. Thinking about key assessments, because whatever those key assessments might be, if it's a midterm, a final, a project, that's going to need to match what they're able to do in the high school as well. But also thinking a little bit about the time constraints that exist at universities that don't always necessarily exist in the high school. I will say this is one of the biggest pushbacks we get sometimes from faculty at the university level is, well, it's a college class, how could they possibly cover this? Forgetting that in high school, sometimes they see those kids 5 days a week, whereas at the university level, we might see them twice a week. So be thinking about those things. What might seem insurmountable on face value that wouldn't work at college, they can make work because they see them so much more. So be thinking about all of those pieces as you're looking at your curriculum. And in my experience, don't rule anything out until you start having those actual one-on-one conversations, both with the teachers who might be offering the course and the administration there as well. Some partnerships, as you're looking at that curriculum, might even include bringing students to campus. So again, some of those obstacles that you might see like at face value when you're looking at that curriculum don't actually exist there once you get into those conversations. So again, don't rule anything out till you get to that part in your process. The very first thing when I hear from a high school teacher or a high school that wants to offer a course is, are you already offering that course? And if so, can we see the curriculum? So again, when you start making those connections with the schools and you're like, this is the course we want to offer, find out if they already offer something comparable, because again, you can work off of that instead of making them implement an entirely new curriculum. And again, I'll just mention, as somebody who is at a NACEP accredited institution, be keeping that in the back of your mind, because there might already be staff on your campus who are doing this work who can help make this process that much easier. So thinking about both what you want to see from that course in terms of objectives and key assessments, the credit value of the course, all of those pieces. But again, also thinking about when you start having those conversations with the high school, what are their needs? What must students meet for their graduation requirements? Because they might look a little bit different than they do at the university level. So this one is relatively easy. Again, if you already know what the course is, it's just thinking about the conversations you'll have down the road.
All right. Again, now we're going to talk about how to research and identify those potential schools. So I feel like I need to go back. Again, my name's Rachel, and you saw what our titles were, but Katie and I kind of joke around that we're kind of a package deal when it comes to concurrent enrollment. We know that most universities don't have an office made up of our duties. So you're hearing Katie talk, you're hearing she does all of the academics accreditation part. I joke around with her. I get to do all the fun stuff. I get to do all the outreach, researching what schools might want to partner with Purdue Northwest. What can we bring them on campus for field trips? Those sorts of things. So I do a lot of research. When I hear from Katie about maybe some faculty want to learn more about concurrent enrollment, then again, and it doesn't matter what comes first, the chicken or the egg sort of thing. what schools are in the area. I just start researching these schools, emailing, calling, all that good stuff. I research to see like what missions align with ours, all that good stuff. So that's where you definitely want to research and identify the potential schools that align with your institution's mission and programs. All right. And then contacting the schools. Obviously, I am not, I love getting out of the office and going into the schools and doing those one-on-one meetings. I bring Katie with me a lot so that she can talk about the academic side. Then once you do that, again, it's email, calling, maybe we will have meeting. We have a lot of informational meetings to discuss because a lot of times people think they know about concurrent enrollment and what it all entails. But when they hear us talk and explain a little bit more, they hear, oh, that they realized they were thinking it was AP. They didn't know the difference. So definitely we have guidance counselor workshops where we bring the counselors in and they can hear. We have administrative workshops where principals can hear. So definitely don't be afraid to either, do your research, contact those schools any way you know how. And also when you're researching those schools, you heard Katie talk a lot about NACEP, knowing if your institution is NACEP accredited. Also, you should find out if your state is also an accredited state chapter, has a state chapter of NACEP. Like Indiana, I see there's some people from Indiana in this chat here. Tomorrow, pretty much everyone in the state of Indiana, for example, is going to be getting an email saying, hey, we're relaunching our state chapter of NCEP. And it's just, again, to learn best practices, learn about maybe some conferences, professional development things. So definitely find out if your state has a state chapter of NACEP as well.
And I did just share the NACEP link in the chat. So you can go there and you can look to see if you're already an NACEP accredited institution. You may not know, in working in the kind of university, but not with concurrent enrollment, you may already be an accredited institution, which means there are certainly people like us doing a lot of this work for you. So I did just share that link. You can go there and learn a lot more just about concurrent enrollment and our national organization. All right, so I kind of hinted at this again when I was talking earlier about curriculum, but each K-12 school you're working with might have its very own specific requirements and criteria for the courses they offer. For example, in Indiana, there's actually 3 different types of high school diplomas, or is it 4 now, that students can earn, and dual credit plays a part in 2 of those 4. So being aware of what those high school graduation requirements are is going to help you, just so you know what their expectations are and what they're going to need from you. Think about what those policies are in terms of academics. Also think about what they are in terms of admission to your institution to get that credit. So for example, if your institution has an admission requirement of 3.0, that could be limiting to those high school students who can take those courses. Conversely, if your admissions requirement is 2.0, but that school wants it to be a 3.0, think about again what their policies are going to be in line. We have that conversation a lot. What our admissions requirement is not necessarily as high as what the schools want for the students who take these courses. So be aware that students may say, no, we want our students to be a little stronger students. We want them to have that 3.0 GPA to take college courses. So think about those types of things. Again, think about what their expectations are from the course. Some of this has to do with the partnership itself and what they expect in terms of support and collegiality between their instructors and you as faculty members. It also could be what are their expectations of your support for students? What kind of advising are their students going to get? And that's where kind of having those conversations internally before you go out about what you're capable of taking on or who you need to partner with at your institution are going to be extremely valuable. For example, with our program, Rachel is the student's academic advisor. So for those high school students, that's who she goes to. If you don't have an office like that, it might mean working with your advising center and figuring out who could be a point of contact as an advisor or as an admissions person who helps support your work. And then also be thinking about what all those documents are that they're going to need. So as part of this work with Amber and Michael, we know there's certain things you have to submit, but your institution might require more. So for example, for our partnerships, we require both an MOU, which is a memorandum of understanding with the entire school corporation, but then also individual articulation agreements for every course. And if those are already developed, ours go through a legal process to be reviewed before we can have them signed off on because our chancellor signs them. So again, just a little bit of legwork to making sure you know both what those K-12 institutions are looking for, and then what your institution is looking for. And I will say, just from experience, most of our K-12 institutions are cool with our expectations. They do, they fill out the documents, but some want more, just depending on the superintendent or the leadership there. So again, think about all those different pieces. It sounds overwhelming. It's not, but just make sure you do your research on what are those expectations before you get too far down the path in developing curriculum that might be difficult to offer. And again, I've talked about this a few times, just really making sure that whatever the curriculum of your courses aligns to whatever those requirements are. So if it's an existing course on your course catalog that has to have X, Y, and Z, you need to communicate that to the schools because they might be expecting A, B, and C. So you need to make sure when you are looking at that curriculum that it meets all of your standards as an institution, but also the K-12 that you're partnering with. And this is where that transferability comes in, right? So that way the students aren't taking a course that, again, doesn't help towards their diploma and wouldn't help towards a diploma at your institution either. We want it to be a win-win for everybody, and that's where those conversations are so important. And I will also say again, in working with high school instructors, they are great. They are very hardworking. They are experts in pedagogy. That's what they went to school for. So they are wonderful in terms of education and being educators. So as long as it's not something that's completely out of the realm of possibility, they're probably going to do a great job teaching that coursework. And I will tell you what I hear from our faculty who observe the high school instructor teaching our courses is that they frequently come back to me and say, I learned something that I want to do in my classroom. Because on the university side, we are experts in our content, but we didn't go get those teaching licenses necessarily. So sometimes these high school instructors have a lot that they can even add for your courses. And this is where those conversations again about, is it a lab that we can only host on campus? Maybe those students can come to campus. As Rachel mentioned, she gets to organize those types of field trips all the time and the schools love it. And it can honestly be a great recruitment tool as well. So be thinking about those types of things as you're aligning that curriculum is what are you offering? How does it align with what you need? And again, the K-12, what they need.
I'm going to say one thing just to add on to when I bring those kids onto campus for what we call a concurrent enrollment day on campus, we do sit them in those undergrad classes. We split them up and we come back together. And I said, what did you guys learn about sitting in that undergrad class? What's the difference between your high school class and this class here at PNW? And the number one thing they always say is they can just get up and leave whenever they want. But the number two thing they always say is that one kid in particular says, this college kids are actually human. I realize now I can do this. And this professor was so cool. I know now I want to come here. So as she said, it could be a recruiting tool. It definitely can be.
Mm-hmm. And this is such an amazing area for high school students to be learning about, that any way you can pique their interest and get them excited about it now is only going to not only help with your institution's goals, but also just with the goals of this field and this profession. It's obviously way too important to not get these students excited about this. So whatever those things are you can do to add to it, whether it be coming in and doing a guest lecture with that high school. We have our faculty do that all the time, and the students, and again, the schools love it because it shows that commitment. It's not a one-way partnership where they're offering a course for us. It's really that kind of back and forth in terms of working together.
I'm going to add one more thing. I'm so sorry. Another thing, when our concurrent enrollment kids are admitted and registered for a course, they're considered PNW students, which means they get invited to these on-campus clubs. They can take a part. And so if there is a cybersecurity club, these kids are invited to that, and talk about such a good way to start building those relationships earlier than what you were expecting. Okay, I'm done now. I promise.
I think I've already covered a lot of this in my other slides, but again, as you're arranging those meetings with those partner schools, honestly, I'll speak for Rachel, but there's a lot of just kind of cold calling, figuring out who that either college advisor is at that high school, or is it best to go through the superintendent? Is it reaching out to a secretary and just saying, are you interested? Figuring out the best way to meet with them. And as Rachel mentioned, sometimes in person is just the best way to go to really demonstrate the commitment to that relationship. Although Zoom is always a great second if you can't, do it in person. Be prepared for there to be a little bit of a conversation about it. Some schools are, they don't like that kind of, I'll say, heavy-handed approach where you come in and say, here's the curriculum and here's the book and this is how it has to be taught. Because again, they have very qualified people teaching. So just thinking about how are you navigating those conversations, and what are your non-negotiables when you go in, but where might there be room for a conversation about exploring the potentials there. And again, we have rarely, if ever, had a bad interaction with a superintendent or a teacher or a principal. Generally, concurrent enrollment is growing rapid fire across the country right now. And so most people are very open to exploring these opportunities. Just really when it comes to the curriculum, that's where the biggest conversations are going to be.
And now it gets to be Mike's turn.
Sorry. Again, navigating the mute button. So next is going to be the legal review and documentation. So this is really towards the end, but you really want to make sure that you're keeping this in the back of your mind. You're going to have administration working with you to kind of facilitate these agreements. So once both parties agree on the terms of the CTA, make sure that you have it reviewed by legal counsel to ensure compliance with any kind of laws or regulations in your state, county, school district, everything in between. So you need to make sure that you prepare the necessary documentation, including the agreement itself and any supporting materials. Make sure that you include your deans, chancellor, principals, and other administrators. And you want to consult legal experts. Your school probably has a legal counsel office. You want to draft the agreement document that outlines the terms, responsibilities, and expectations of both parties, and ensure that you include details such as course descriptions, the credit transfer process, student eligibility criteria, and termination clauses if you feel that that's something that you're going to need. And then finally, you are going to want to sign the agreement. So once all parties are satisfied with the terms and conditions, officially sign the credit transfer agreement. Make sure that your stakeholders, such as the school administrators, department heads, board members, and everyone else has approved and signed the agreement. And this could be a more formal contract or a memorandum of understanding. It could be both. One thing that you might want to do is organize a signing ceremony where representatives from both your institutions officially sign the agreement. This is going to be good publicity for you. And ensure that all parties involved, including school administrators and relevant department heads, approve and sign the agreement. And then, of course, you want to implement and monitor. So begin implementing the credit transfer program according to the agreed upon terms. You want to start offering the courses outlined in the agreement to high school students. Regularly monitor the progress and outcomes of each credit transfer program, and then gather feedback from students, teachers, and administrators to assess the effectiveness of the program.
Can I add one thing here, Michael?
Sure.
Okay, then this is where I will mention again, finding out if you are a NACEP accredited institution is really important, because that monitoring piece might be mandatory under your accreditation,
Right.
and might have a very specific look to how it has to be done. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that again, in your research, make sure you look into that.
Right. And along those lines, you want to make sure that you have an open line of communication with the schools and your institution to address any issues, provide support, and explore other opportunities for further collaboration. Who doesn't like to collaborate with our peers, right? And as Katie had mentioned, NACEP accreditation. Is your school NACEP accredited? Because they will be able to help you facilitate some of these processes if they are.
Perfect.